Hi, hi everyone. Me, Sailor Neptune, Sailor SeaWorld, Michelle here. And today we're going to talk about Slight 2, about why the Unstraight were handled the way they were handled in Sailor Moon by Dic and Pioneer Glee. Now, keep in mind it was handled like that at that time. There was a time, I don't know how long ago, when this started, but there was a time where, folks couldn't handle unstraightness. And I'm not saying there are not folks out there now who still can't handle it, because there are. But there was a time where there was a belief that if, about what you could and could not do in drawing shows for children, no need which land they came from. First off, Dic which at the time was owned by the Walt Disney business at that time, between 95 YL to 20 YL, until 2001 YL, there were some oversights that you had to follow. And even if there wasn't, you made it up as you went. And Dic at the time thought, when it came to Zoisite being a woman, there were some worries. One, they were worried about what the ownership and leadership of UPN and WB would think of it, as far as Zoisite and Malachite go. And they were also worried about what any bearers, teachers, worshipful elders, or leaders would think about it too. Now you might say to yourself, how could any of them have any sway over it? Well, if they somehow got a hold of UPN or WB, and made such a big deal about Zoisite, and keep in mind, folks like that would make a big deal out of it. So Dic had to make Zoisite into a woman, which a lot of folks in the Sailor Moon followership, a lot of them were against. Because in every other telling of Sailor Moon, Zoisite, however you go by the spelling, was a man. And only in the between 90 YL drawing show, or at least in Dic's world, that Zoisite was a woman. Now, you might think to yourself, well, why would they be worried about those folks? As I told you, bearers and teachers and worshipful elders would somehow make such a big deal out of it that UPN and WB would have to say was a no-go. Or the folks at UPN and WB at the time would be upset over it and they wouldn't broadcast it. So that was a guess. Now, once you get to the 3-diff following, and even the 4-diff following, it comes up again. By this time, Pioneer Glee, or Pathseeker Glee, had gotten the rights to work with Sailor Moon, and they had a big bind, because we were in it, and every other telling of Sailor Moon, we were unstraight lovers, in some way. And so Pioneer Glee was in the same bind. And you might say, well, it's 20-0. The mindset, the stand, the trusting, the understanding should have been there. Well, it wasn't there yet. And Pioneer Glee, but at that time, had to do things that they thought they had to do. So once again, bearers, teachers, and worshipful leaders would not make a big deal out of it. Or cartoon or YTV. or drawing show would not make a big deal out of it, because if they did, well, you could kiss your broadcasting goodbye. Nowadays, and I know, and by the time we get to the Friedrich following, you have Fisheye, which in every other telling of Sailor Moon, he is a man. In Pioneer's world, Pioneer Glee's world, or Pathfinder Glee's world, which is just a prolonging of the Dic world in many ways, made Fisheye a woman. However you go by saying her name, Fisheye or Fish's Eye, it's not really much of a likeness there. And a lot of folks had the belief that Sailor Stars, they felt they didn't get picked up due to the Sailor Starlights. Now, I know there were ways they could be worked around. They would have come up with something. But the truth to why Sailor Stars didn't get picked up was that Pioneer Glee chose not to renew, choose to not get a new deal with Toei. So they let their deal go. And that's why Sailor Stars didn't get worked in English at that time. Now, a lot of folks will then say, well, why is it that Viz News didn't have to do anything to Sailor Moon? Well, by the time Viz News got the rights to work with Sailor Moon, the understanding, the trusting, and, the understanding, the trusting, the open-mindedness was there now. More folks were trusting, open-minded, and had understanding about what it meant to be unstraight and those who saw themselves as unstraight. And by that time, more folks would handle it. So Viz News did not have to do the same things that Dic Glee and later on Pioneer Glee or Pathseeker Glee would have to do. Now, a lot of folks out there might think that at the end of the day, they might think that, well, what if Dic and Pioneer, Pathseeker, what if they chose to not do that? Well, like I said before in this film, if they chose not to do any of that, they wouldn't. I don't know. I think if they chose not to do it, I think bearers and teachers and worshipful elders of all worships, some of them would have, been pissed off, angered, irked, I think. And they would have somehow gotten a hold of UPN or WB or USA at the time and say, well, you're not, and make such a big deal about it that they would stop broadcasting it. Or the leadership, the ownership and leadership of UPN, WB, USA, and even Cartoon would been irked or angered over it, and they would have said, we're not broadcasting it. So, yeah, Dic Glee and Pioneer Glee had to do what they had to do at that time. You can scathe the past, and you can be thankful that the way things are now is not the way they were. All right. If you like this film, then give it then like, share, and playlist it, and I'll see you later.